Olá, meus amigos, permitam apresentar-me. Sou José Carlos Corse, espírita por convicção há 50 anos e modesto administrador da instituição assistencial espírita Lar Bom Repouso, do Centro Espírita Casa Grande do Caminho e da Rádio Síntese Web, sempre ao lado de minha estimada companheira Margarita Biasi Corse, médium competente e segura, sobretudo trabalhadora dedicada às tarefas da seara de Jesus Cristo. Humildemente, reconheço que Margarita, com sua abnegação como médium e como responsável tarefeira, ao longo de todo esse longo tempo decorrido, é que tem nos permitido prosseguir nesta jornada a que nos propomos. Esse vídeo que ora introduzo aspira a promover uma singela homenagem àquele que poucos sabem é o patrono espiritual e idealizador desta casa de caridade, a instituição assistencial espírita Lar Bom Repouso, o respeitabilíssimo Dr. Albert Schweitzer, teólogo, filósofo, médico, cirurgião, compositor e músico considerado o maior intérprete de Bach. Entretanto, acima de todos os adjetivos possíveis, cremos o maior humanista do século XX. Desencarnado em 4 de setembro de 1965, apenas 5 anos depois, no início da década de 70, agora já espírita, o Dr. Albert já nos honrava mediunicamente com sua honrosa presença e desde então sempre esteve ao nosso lado na luta diária que abraçamos para minimizar o sofrimento de tantos de nossos irmãos que atravessaram o nosso caminho, participando de nossa jornada tarefeira, enriquecendo-nos com seus conselhos, guiando nossos passos cristamente. Em todas as terças-feiras, em reuniões públicas no Centro Espírita Casa Grande do Caminho, incansavelmente, ele que não encerrou sua parcela de ajuda ao nosso orbe terrestre, segue trabalhando, transmitindo seus conselhos bondosos na forma de apelos paternais para a nossa consciência avivar-se e acordar esse efeito hipnótico que o materialismo produz nas criaturas, fazendo-nos esquecer que somos, antes de tudo, espíritos imortais e que, então, nossa tarefa aqui não é puramente calçar-nos de comodidades, necessidades e sobrevivência. Suas palavras de mais de meio século atrás permanecem mais vivas do que nunca. Lembram-se, dizia ele, não é suficiente simplesmente existir, não é suficiente dizer que estou ganhando o suficiente para viver e ajudar minha família, ou que faço o meu trabalho bem. Você deve fazer algo mais. Procure sempre fazer algum bem em algum lugar. Todo homem tem de procurar seu próprio caminho para tornar-se mais nobre. Você deve dar algo para seu próximo, mesmo que seja algo pequeno. Deve fazer algo por aqueles e tem necessidade de ajudar alguém, de ajuda a alguém, algo pelo qual você não é pago, mas tem o privilégio de fazer. É, pois, com grande prazer que humildemente patrocinamos a versão em português, cuja tradução foi elaborada pelos nossos estimados irmãos Jonathan e Nilza Banhato de Mamba, para fazer chegar-lhe às mãos este rico material em forma de vídeo, que foi produzido originalmente pela Universidade de Quinnipiac e pelo Instituto Albert Schweitzer, ambos sediados nos Estados Unidos. Estas entidades existem com o objetivo principal de disseminar as ideias do Dr. Albert Schweitzer nos dias atuais, sobre sua filosofia de reverência à vida, sua ética, sua luta pelo anti-armamento nuclear, além de ensinar aos jovens matriculados na universidade os ideais de vida dessa incrível personalidade humanitária, médico, musicista e filósofo que foi Dr. Albert. Mas o vídeo falará mais do que poderíamos intentar. Por favor, assista-o com interesse para adquirir conhecimento sobre uma das principais personalidades que já habitaram nosso planeta e que segue ajudando-nos agora em espírito no Brasil, utilizando-se de abençoada mediunidade e um verdadeiro testemunho de amor ao Cristo, seguindo seus passos e modelo.
One of the key lessons that everyone learns from Dr. Schweitzer is that you can serve global humanity in one village. Dr. Schweitzer's example has set a powerful and inspirational standard for us and for many other people who have attempted in various ways to follow in his footsteps.
He quite often told me the hospital is my improvisation, but for him his most important contributions was as a philosopher with the principle of reverence for life, which was the foundation of his philosophy.
Theologian, philosopher, musician, author. By age 30, Albert Schweitzer seemed destined for an enviable and comfortable future as a scholar and a performer. But that wasn't the future he had in mind. Instead, to the shock of both family and friends, Schweitzer returned to school to prepare for a very different sort of life. To serve the sick and poor thousands of miles away in the jungle. For more than 50 years, Schweitzer would devote himself to building a hospital in a small village on a tributary of the great Ogowe River in French Equatorial Africa. No one, least of all Schweitzer, could have foreseen that his work would capture worldwide attention, or that his thoughts and ideas, scribbled at a rustic desk deep into the jungle night, would still resonate today.
People call me a man of action, but I am really a dreamer.
Albert Schweitzer was born on January 14, 1875, in the town of Kaisersberg in Alsace, a region between France and Germany, which was then a part of Germany. Albert's father, Louis, was a Protestant pastor in the mainly Catholic town. He preached to his small congregation in a tiny chapel built behind the family home. Soon after Albert's birth, the family moved to the village of Gunsbach in the Munster Valley, 40 miles south. Here, both Protestant and Catholic congregations shared Pastor Schweitzer's church.
When I was still merely a child, I felt it to be something beautiful that in our village, Catholics and Protestants worshipped in the same building.
But the world beyond this stained glass harmony was somewhat less benign. School was a trial for young Albert. He may have grown up to be a scholar, but he certainly didn't start out as one. His less than stellar marks caused his mother no end of grief. Worse by far, though, was being teased by his classmates for being a rich man's son, which, given the poverty of the village, was true. Albert was so bothered by this inequality that he even refused to wear an overcoat in cold weather because the other boys didn't have them. Albert's budding sense of justice soon grew to include all living creatures. One day, another boy invited him to shoot birds with slingshots in the hills above town. Albert found himself torn. He wanted to please his friend, but he was appalled at the idea of killing for fun. But just as Albert readied his first shot, the church bell rang out for the start of Lent. To Schweitzer, this was a divine warning. He dropped his slingshot and ran forward, shouting and waving his arms to scare and save the birds.
Ever since, when the Passiontide bells ring, I reflect with a rush of grateful emotion how on that day their music drove deep into my heart to the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill." From that day onward, I took courage to emancipate myself from the fear of man, and whenever my inner convictions were at stake, I let other people's opinion weigh less with me than they had done previously. This early influence upon me of the commandment not to kill or to torture other creatures is the great experience of my childhood and youth.
These intense personal childhood experiences would one day help form Schweitzer's philosophy of reverence for life, a philosophy that embraces the oppressed and, indeed, all living things. Schweitzer's interest in Africa also has roots in his childhood. His mother was an avid newspaper reader, so even in bucolic Gunsbach they knew of the slave trade and other horrors making headlines from the Congo. And perhaps this is partly why he was so fascinated by a statue of an African man in the town of Colmar, where his grandparents lived. It was sculpted by Frederick August Bertoldi, a fellow Alsatian whose most famous work sits in New York's harbor. The Colmar statue was an intense and vivid portrait, and Schweitzer was mesmerized and haunted by the African's gaze.
His face, with its sad, thoughtful expression, spoke to me of the misery of the dark continent.
Years later, in Africa, he would write,
"Ever since the world's far-off lands were discovered, what has been the conduct of the white people to the colored ones? What is the meaning of the simple fact that this and that people had died out as a result of their discovery by men who professed to be followers of Jesus? Who can describe the injustice and cruelties they have suffered at the hand of the Europeans? We and our civilization are burdened, really, with a great debt."
There was, however, one area of young Schweitzer's life that was a steady source of joy: music. He came from a long line of musicians. His grandfather was famous for his improvisations on the organ, and it was a gift Albert would inherit. By age 5, he was playing the piano, but it was the organ in his father's church at Gunsbach that fascinated him. When the organist became suddenly ill one Sunday, Albert, then 9 and barely able to reach the pedals, was good enough to fill in and play all the music for the service. Later, as a student in the nearby town of Mulhausen, he studied music formally. By his mid-teens, he was playing the massive organ at Mulhausen's St. Stephen's Church. Albert loved most the music of Johann Sebastian Bach. By the time he was 30, Schweitzer had become a published authority and master performer of Bach's many works. He also studied the art and science of organ building. When the organ at Gunsbach was damaged during World War I and again during World War II, it was Schweitzer who designed its restoration. It was clear to everyone that Albert Schweitzer was preparing for two careers, music and the church. At 18, in 1893, Schweitzer enrolled at the University of Strasbourg, the preeminent liberal university in Europe at the time, and the school his father had attended. Over the next 7 years, he would study organ in Paris, explore philosophy at the Sorbonne, and pursue theology at the University of Berlin. By 1900, Schweitzer had been awarded 3 university degrees, 2 in theology and a PhD in philosophy. A year later, he finished an advanced degree in theology with an in-depth study of the Last Supper. This research became, in 1906, Schweitzer's great theological work, The Quest of the Historical Jesus. Albert Schweitzer was becoming well known in academic and musical circles as a man of original vision, energy, and determination. But he had a very practical side too. Once, when Schweitzer missed a pre-concert lunch and dinner held in his honor, his frantic host eventually found the star musician in his shirt sleeves climbing down from the organ pipes in the church. Schweitzer had arrived as scheduled earlier that day, but had stopped by the church to try out the organ. Finding it in disrepair, he spent the next 6 hours tuning it. That night, the townspeople remarked the organ never sounded so brilliant. Professionally, Schweitzer's future seemed assured. By his mid-20s, he was ordained as a Lutheran minister, became a professor at the university, and was appointed dean at St. Thomas Theological College. Yet for all his outward signs of success, Schweitzer was in a state of profound inner turmoil. When he was just 21, at the start of his studies, Schweitzer had made a promise to himself. He would dedicate the first 30 years of his life to the study of music, theology, and philosophy. After that, he would devote the rest of his life to serving humanity. It was the only way he felt he could reap